Hey everybody, I just wanted to make this video regarding NIO, and I wanted to discuss NIO as a company and its performance and just some of the opinions that I have. Not a financial advisor, but just please do your own research. And the reason why I wanted to share my opinion on things is because I noticed that people are giving their day-to-day views on NIO a lot on YouTube or on Reddit or on Yahoo Finance, and these are probably not the best these are probably not the best places to really do research. And I mean, some of the YouTube videos are really good actually, but Reddit and Yahoo Finance are probably not it. And the reason why I generally take my time with these videos is because if you're an investor or if you're just someone interested in the company, you want to understand different points of view, right? Which is why people go on social media. The problem with this, I've noticed, is that people don't really give good reviews on things, and I just wanted to really highlight this real quick. So let's go onto this Reddit website, just to see what they discuss on this platform. Yeah, so it's really there's no real useful discussion here. It's just people swearing and people really upset. So it's okay, this is just some sort of rumor about Hong Chi, I think, potentially partnering with NIO's battery swap, and I guess this person's sharing a website. This person's discussing a little bit about the financials, I think. Okay, it's just the statistics of NIO's performance when it comes to battery swap. So yeah, it's really hard to find good discussion, because even if you actually look, I was just looking because I'm like, well, what are people thinking, right? Because if you're a trader or something, not a financial advisor, please do your own research. It's really hard to find really good discussion to better understand the company. So this is why I make longer formatted videos and I take my time to really describe how I feel or think or view things, because when I'm sharing my own opinion on things, it's just an opinion. Don't take it seriously, but I would like that people get a better understanding of how I view things. And I admit, even I myself, I want to know the company better too, and I want to understand the company as well, because it's really hard to find discussion with the companies, unless you're unless you're going to talk to investor relations, but they're not going to sit down with you and talk to you about the company. So I just pulled up Reddit, and this is probably one of the largest social media platforms in America, probably one of them, and it's supposed to support and promote long types of discussion, but I mean, not really useful things. It's who's gonna believe what the CFO and CEO says? It's it doesn't really help with anything, and it's mostly people angry, and they're probably bag holding the stock, which is, yeah, I can understand that. You should be upset, but blaming the management isn't really gonna fix that, because there's more to the stock and the company than management. There's so many other things, like the macro environment or the just the ever-changing conditions that a company has to work with. You can forecast things, but that doesn't mean that the landscape's going to change. Is not going to change. It is, right? Tariffs, you might think tariffs will go down or will go up, or the conditions to enter certain markets may be favorable or not. We just saw EU or Germany potentially putting up tariffs, right? So it's it's constantly changing, but I wanted to take my time, so I will. A few things that came to my mind was Ziker is going to IPO in the US. I think it's going to be at a 12 billion market cap. And it looks like they're raising over 1 billion in their initial public offering. Ziker was valued at 13 billion. So yeah, that's a good sign. I think Chinese companies are starting to IPO again. And this is a very good sign that perhaps Chinese companies are seeing opportunities once again in foreign direct investments. So let's Deliveries don't always matter, especially when there are different market segments, but let's just see how many Seeks cumulative deliveries exceed 150,000. Okay, so Ziker has delivered around 170,000 units so far, which is really good. And the reason why I want to discuss this is because, let's see. So the price ranges are anywhere from 40 to 52,000. Chinese Model Y base, interesting. So they have some cheap models and some a little bit more expensive models, and I guess it's good just to see like how the the car market in China is doing, and yeah, I guess they're doing pretty okay, I guess. So that's interesting. Yeah, Ziker's IPOing, which is a good sign for investors. I think it depends how you look at it, but it shows that there's that perhaps Chinese companies are finding like favorable conditions to start, looking for investments overseas again. Another thing I want to talk more about was NIO Stock, though. Okay, so I think a lot of those people on social media platforms and the bears and the shorts, they're generally okay. If you sold out of the stock, right, you want this stock to go down as low as possible, because if you're shorting the stock, you want this thing to go down, because the more it goes down, the more money you'll make. Is it going to go bankrupt? Probably not, in my humble opinion. Just opinion, do your own research, not a financial advisor. But do I think this company is going to go bankrupt in the next year or two? No, this company probably has cash for the next 3 to 5 years, and they're cutting their costs. They can also raise capital fairly easily from what I've seen with Abu Dhabi. They can restructure debt, and they can always fall back on the government if they can't. This company has 26,000 jobs for people in Hefei and all over China. So it's very essential to the economy that this company performs well. It's also the innovator of battery and battery swap technologies and standardization, which is very important as well. So, I don't think that this company is going to go bankrupt, in my humble opinion, next 3 to 5 years. And why am I saying this? Because I want to go further into my views on just the stock. And again, not financial advice. Please do your own research. So if you bought here, you're probably upset. You're probably not very happy with things, and you probably are bag holding. And that's like majority of the market, right? Like most of the stock market, most of the stocks are down. Like out of the 2,800 on the New York Stock Exchange alone, I think it's only like a couple hundred that are actually doing very, very well, and majority of the stocks are not. I mean, let's just look at Tencent real quick, just as a reference, okay? Tencent is nowhere near the all-time highs, or even like, gosh, it's lower than numbers from 5-6 years ago. And just because if you look at the SP 500 and Russell, they're performing okay, does not reflect the whole general stock market health, especially when you have the Fed printing a lot of money to pump up the indexes, because these things are used for retirement funds. That doesn't mean like that the general stock market is doing good. And so please do your own research on that part, because I don't really want to like look through every company to sell you my point. Most stocks are just not doing that great, okay? I mean, look at Tencent. This is the Goliath of China, and like it's not even like, if you bought here, you're not very happy, and if you bought around here, you're still not happy, and if you bought here and here, you're kind of happy. So it's like, yeah, most people are just generally not happy with how stocks have been performing. Another thing we could look at is the Hang Seng. Same thing. If you bought if you bought here, you're not happy, and if you bought here, you're not happy. Okay, so it's not just NIO. It's like majority of the companies on the New York Stock Exchange. We're in a recession. Okay, we're in a recession. Things are not doing so well in terms of the stocks and assets. And but with that being said, so when you look at NIO, I would not personally just look at this company and be like, oh man, like it's just my company that's doing bad. Every other company is doing really, really good. No, it's not. With the exception of Li Auto, which is, I'm really proud of this company. This is a really good company. It's profitable. It's doing well. It's definitely showing that, if you perform well as a company, and you can manage your finances, then, perhaps your stock's price will reflect that. This is not a electric vehicle company, although this is partial, right? So it's not really fair to compare these companies. Another one, for example, is Xpeng. Look at or Xiaopeng. Look at this thing. Look how low it is. It's $15 right now. If you bought here, you're not very happy. If you bought here, you're definitely not happy. And if you buy here, I guess you'd be okay because you just double up on your money, sort of. But yeah, it's like not doing that well, man. And if you bought here, you're definitely not doing that good. So it's like that with a lot of companies, okay? So I was reading on the forums how bearish people are, but they're not bearish. They're just complaining about how down they are on their stock. But if you look at the stock market in general, and if you go on different forums, it's not just people on NIO. It's most people are down or hardly breaking even, and most people are finding that bonds are more attractive because the interest rate, the yield rate is pretty decent, I guess. But for me personally, I have time on my hand, I have money to spend, so I don't find it, for me personally, I want to invest in bonds because I can handle the volatility, which the time I have. And I wanted to talk more about NIO because I see a lot of identical situations when it came to when I bought around here. When I bought in 2019, very much similar to Tesla. The environment was very much like this. It's really funny too because the same types of posters I used to see are coming back. So when I was first investing in NIO and Tesla, I remember I'd go to Yahoo Finance just to take a look at what people were saying, because it's really hard to find information on companies, right? I noticed that NIO has done a great job over the past 3 or 4 years to actually facilitate conversations and information with shareholders, but it wasn't always like that, and there was just no information. So I'd go on Yahoo Finance to kind of gauge things out, and this is why I look at the macro environment now, because it's so hard to find information on companies that you need to look at things from a macro point of view. And that's why I look at the macroeconomics first. That's why I look at the larger frame, and then I try to figure out where my company fits in that, because it's not always easy to find information on your companies. And if you're trying to get a first starter on where you want to place your bets, it's generally too late if you already see it on the news. So you'd have to kind of make up your own time frame on things and make your own forecasts, right? You want to predict things, place your bets, and then hope it rides out. And that's something people should think about. Again, not a financial advisor, but with that being said, though, around this time, I noticed that both companies were getting the most bearish things ever, and all the same complaints I saw back then are very similar to the things I see now. Everyone's criticizing the CEO, but no one's really providing any substance. They're all complaining about the stock price and how the investors don't care about them, and how about the CEO doesn't care about them. But there's no real genuine concerns that say okay, this company is not gonna do well. So do I think the company is going to do well personally? Well, yeah. The company, in terms of just deliveries alone, which isn't always everything, it's always about revenue and profits, but in terms of just deliveries, this company has been performing better over time. And I think if we just look at deliveries as a metric, I think that's going to improve when you have the mass market come into play, just like Tesla. Why do I think that Tesla has held its gains pretty okay compared to NIO? Well, it's an American company. That's one of the main reasons why. And this company in particular is just really unique. You have someone like Elon Musk. But I just wanted to go more into this because I wanted to kind of understand if we're stacking NIO up compared to other companies, where does it stand? This company was once trading at almost $80 billion, $90 billion, but like it doesn't really matter that much because we had a lot of easy money and there was a lot of volatility during that time. But does it really make sense when companies like Rivian or VinFast and even Lucid Motors have market caps around NIO? Now I'm not just thinking about like the share price, but I'm thinking about in terms of market cap. Like, does it really make sense that some of these companies have a market cap anywhere around NIO's? I would argue not. Can I justify Li Auto's? I don't know. I would have to go over their financials. But a VinFast or Rivian, Lucid Motors, I don't think you could really justify a market cap around NIO's. Especially if you look at forecasts based on like the mass model implementation and or the sub brand. I don't think so personally. Of course you can look at this many ways, but if NIO was an American company, do I think it would be priced much higher? Yeah, substantially show, especially if it showed its merits. But I don't think the fact that it's a Chinese company should really matter, because I think that the SEC and the Chinese regulators are making great leaps when it comes to auditing regulations of the PCOAB. I've seen that they've been making a lot of steps. So I think as of December 2022, they've kind of figured things out. So I've noticed that a lot of people aren't really talking about delisting fears anymore, because if you're a short or if you're bear and you want the company stock to go down, then you can't really talk about delisting fears because it doesn't work anymore. You can't talk about a red balloon that flew over America because that doesn't work anymore. Now people are talking about World War III with Taiwan. But if you actually follow Xi Jinping, then you'd realize that Xi Jinping doesn't want war with Taiwan, and it wants a peaceful reunification. But it doesn't even have to happen during his lifetime. It's something that'll happen over time. So, with all the things with APEC and Joe Biden and Xi Jinping meeting up, based on both their economies and things I've heard from Janet Yellen from APEC, I think that the United States and China may see some more strength in their economic and relationships, because both countries need it. Do I think that Joe Biden has really been tough on China? No. Despite the Trump tariffs, tariffs don't last forever. It's a tax on the people, and it's especially a tax on the Americans, and China's working around it. And I think the United States economy is getting to a position where they cannot really afford to have these tariffs anymore, and they might have to start loosening these tariffs, and start strengthening their economic reliance on China once again, because, well, if you look at things in the United States, it's not doing that well. So fentanyl, I know that's another hot topic, but personally for me, the American drugs in America is more of it's a domestic issue. Like, the war on drugs it's our issue. Whether it's opium, whether it's meth, whether it's big pharma, like whether we have to, as long as there's a demand for these things, this is not going to stop. It doesn't matter if the drugs are from China or India or Mexico. They're going to come in, and it does not matter. These are domestic problems, and we cannot blame all our problems on China. So a lot of the things we criticize China for are red herrings. I think a lot of people who hate China, who don't like China, they're either racist, supremacists, or they don't really understand like their hatred. And they don't understand how contradictory it can be. Like, yes, you can dislike the government, but it's like, is your government much better? And then like, maybe it's better for you, but is it better for your fellow American citizens, right? Like, if you are a minority of some sort, or if you are a marginalized group, or if you're a lower class, like, can you afford the freedoms that some privileged folks have? Now, I wanted to discuss these things about ethics because the stock market doesn't have ethics. Okay, we saw that during 2020, 2021. We saw that with Lehman Brothers. We saw that in 2008. We saw that during the Great Depression. The stock market just does not have ethics. It's not a very moral thing. Money talks. People want money. And the reason why you have to understand that America the government and the system does not have ethics is because you cannot have your personal biases with like American patriotism get into your way when you are trying to, do things with your money. Understanding that America is very much imperialistic and colonialist that rely on these structures till this day is very important because it'll help you build a framework of how you want to invest, especially if it's not things that are supported by the Fed. So do I think that NIO at 13.559 billion makes sense? I think at this current moment it could make sense. Do I think that comparing NIO to XPeng and Li Auto makes sense? Not really, because these companies both have different business models with different price points, with different types of businesses and different types of services and products. Like this one sells hybrids, this one sells cheaper EVs, and this one sells more premium. I think when NIO has its mass market, you may want to compare the mass market numbers with Tesla and XPeng and compare NIO premium vehicles with Tesla premium vehicles in China. I think Li Auto on its own is a very good company, but it's a hybrid. It's not really in the same realm. But it's good. Then you can at least see our consumer spending, but you wouldn't get a good view because hybrids and electric vehicles are very completely different things. So it's like, at that point, you may want to just consider Honda or Tesla, or Honda or Toyota. And I think that would be a better way to compare Li Auto if you compared them to Honda or Toyota. So describing the ethics is important along with morality because the stock market is just a really big psychological game with some math, some accounting, and some finances, but a lot of it is like market psychology. So I wanted to discuss more about that because I don't think it's talked about enough. So if you're an institutional investor, where would you buy in? Would you want it to buy down here in the $2, $3, and $4 range? Or would you want to buy up here, 56, 45, 34, 19? Well, you want to buy down here because that's going to maximize your return on your initial investment. And this is important because I wanted to talk about NIO. And what do I think personally? Just my humble opinion. Please do your own research. I was looking at the sentiment, and a lot of the bearish news towards NIO are not really that strong. Like, I think there's a lot of negative sentiment, but it's a lot of fluff sentiment. It's kind of like you can be over bullish on a stock and then pump a lot of garbage to like hopefully pump up the stock to have like a bullish sentiment, but maybe that really can't justify the bullishness of a stock. And I currently see like too much bearishness on NIO where it just doesn't really make sense, and the bearish criticisms aren't really they're not really useful, they're not really relevant, they're probably already priced in, and I don't think it's really that useful at this point. And because of that, I'm wondering, like, is this a good time to buy? Is it becoming a very attractive price? Like, yes, I know people are talking about a $5 point, right? Like, oh, $5 the bottom, like it's gonna reach $5, and hey, maybe it could, maybe but that's a psychological thing, right? So psychology really does matter. That's why you have technical analysis. Psychology is a very big deal when looking at stocks. That we have books about this, like the market psychology, or Warren Buffett's talks about when there's blood on the streets you buy, or whatever, right? Like there's so much market psychology in things because you have billions of people participating in this thing, so there's a lot of that's why you have advertisement. But yeah, just red, green, if you look at color dynamics and how they work, or color theory invokes certain types of feelings, then yes, market psychology is a very big deal. So yeah, if just pretend you're an institutional investor, you have millions and billions of dollars to allocate. Every million you put in at a 1% return on your investment is going to be a huge return on your investment. So if you want to maximize your profits, it's best for you to buy low and sell high. So in my humble opinion, I bought here in 2019-ish, 18-ish, just like Tesla. And look, overall, the company deliveries have gone up. And do I think it's going to keep going up? I do. Based on management, the market cycles, I think that the Fed could be lowering interest rates in 2024 or 2025. I think that the economy will pick up over time. I think that China and United States are going to start strengthening the economies and working together again. I do honestly believe this, in my humble opinion, just my own opinion. And I think that this will reflect in the delivery numbers over time. I think that NIO will also expand into other markets when the conditions become more favorable. But another thing I wanted to look at was the ownership breakdown. And I gathered a few companies that were very popular amongst retail investors. And NIO is one of the most popularly traded and held stocks by retail investors. So when you look at NIO, the general public holds around 44 to 50% of the stock. You have 32% institutions, individual insiders at 9%, the state government is 7%, public companies 6.8%, private companies 0.3%, 0.0003, and you look at the same thing with Uxpeng. The general public is much lower, 32%. And because of that, this is a big difference. I think NIO's actual general public held shares are around 50%, almost more closer to 50%. Okay, don't quote me on that, please. And because of that, this is a very big deal. It means that there's going to be more volatility with the actual company itself. Because there's more retail, there's more chances of volatility because retail gets scared, retail needs money, they cannot buy low and hold because they got to pay bills, right? And most retail investors, you can shake them out easily because they don't have the money to withstand large periods of negative returns. So this one has 40 to 50% general public. This one's 32%. This is Uxpeng. Tesla is 43%, and institutions is 55% for Apple, while the general public's 38%. Oh, I'm sorry. The general public is 42%. So NIO has a lot of institutional retail investors, more so than a lot of companies in general. This means that the sentiment from retail truly does matter. And when institutions want to buy in, institutions and individual insiders and the state government and these big names down here, Tencent, Bailey Gifford, the Vanguard Group, Abu Dhabi, even William Lee, they don't want to buy the stock when it's up here. They want to buy the stock for the best price they can. And do I think it's possible that there's some sort of market manipulation? I don't know for sure, but I don't think that the market is always very ethical. I don't think that they always follow regulators and what the SEC wants. I don't think they're always very transparent and fair, and I do think that they have incentives to drive down the stock. Now, I believe from my understanding, William Lee did say that the company could be profitable, but he wants to spend money on research and development, and he wants to expand the company, which is fine to me. I think that's a great thing because I want them to be competitive in the future. There's a lot of competition in China, so if they need to spend more money to be competitive, I'm okay with that. I understand and I get it. If the NIO mass market vehicles really do take off, and we all think that, okay, we're going to guarantee that this is going to be NIO's cash cow. This is where a lot of the profits are going to start coming in when they start delivering high volumes of NIOs. If we all think that, and if this is probably going to happen by late 2024, 2025, where we're going to see the volume of deliveries just jump up tremendously, and if we think that NIO has replicated Tesla in terms of solidifying themselves as a premium electric vehicle company, and that even if you bought a lower end single variant motor, lower priced NIO vehicle, that you have some sort of you have some like credibility and status to your name because of that, like the Tesla effect, then I think NIO is going to make sense. Like even if you buy like a Model 3, which is not that expensive, you're going to think, oh, you probably have some money, you can afford something like that. And I think it's very much the same with NIO. You're going to see a NIO and you're going to see like a lower end vehicle. Oh, this person can afford a NIO, therefore they must have money. Now when it comes to the US entry, I just want to say that you can also do rental services as well, but I think we'll have to see if NIO is going to go into the United States depending on whether or not the conditions become more favorable. So we shall be looking at the APEC to see if Joe Biden and Xi Jinping can work things out. So anyway, if you are an institutional investor, you are going to want to buy when the stock's low. And so currently the Abu Dhabi is anywhere from 10 to 30% down on their initial investment. So if the Abu Dhabi can't even get it right, you can't either. But the difference with you and the Abu Dhabi government is that they have time to wait things out. Like if you are living paycheck to paycheck, or if you're a middle class person and you invest, I don't know, 10 to 20% of your paycheck into stocks, when you see a stock jump down and you see your whole portfolio red, you're gonna be sad. But when the Abu Dhabi, who has tons of money, can still, like, that means you're gonna be eating like a little bit less luxurious. You may not go on that vacation. But if you're the Abu Dhabi, or if you're a Vanguard, or if you're an institutional investor, it doesn't really matter if the stock's red, because all that means is, well, your standard of living is still going to be high, right? You can still afford all the things you wanted because you just have so much money. And that's how market psychology works. Like, they can hold longer than you can, and they can go through bear markets longer than you can, because no matter how much money they lose, they can still maintain their higher standard of living. Well, us retail investors cannot, which is why it's so easy to shake out retail investors. It's so easy because they don't have the resources to stay vigilant. So when the general public for NIO is so much higher than so many stocks, like NIO is one of the most held stocks by retail investors, especially in terms of percentage and market cap, and it's a Chinese stock, like there's going to be way more volatility than a lot of other companies. And I wanted to discuss more about like institutional interest in NIO Stock. Now, I'm not a financial advisor. Please do your own research. This is just my humble opinion. If I were William Lee, the Abu Dhabi, Tencent, Bailey Gifford, I want to acquire more shares of NIO if I truly think that this company is going to reach, I don't know, they're going to be profitable. And I expect their share price to reflect that over time based on what analysts are saying. If I truly believe that the stock's price is undervalued, I don't think that, I'm just saying, if I did think that, this is my opinion, not a financial advisor, please do your own research. If I did that, it's possible that I could imagine that, like, it's very possible that, you know, some entities would want to drive down the stock's price in order to get into a more favorable position. So generally, if the institutional holders are higher, like, okay, right now, if the stock was around $7 and the institutional investors were around 50 to 60%, and the general public was around 30 to 20%, if these institutions pump up the stock, then that's going to force the general public to buy in at a much less favorable price. And then institutions can sell out, right? Kind of like a Ponzi scheme, right? So if at these prices, the majority of investors were institutionals by like 60 or 50%, then they can drive other institutions to buy in. They can hype it up in the news media and then have retail pump it up and then sell here and then have retail hold in the bag. Now, has this happened before? Has it happened with GME? Has it happened in 2020? Has it happened before? Yeah. So, like, do I think this is a very much strategy that could be repeated once again? Yes. Now, do I think that William Lee is kind of mad that the stock's price is low? Not really, because if he wants to acquire more shares, then he wants the stock to go down, right? If the Abu Dhabi wants to raise more capital or invest more, yeah, they're going to want NIO to go down in price. And there is a desire for institutional investors to have a lower price in order to maximize their investment returns. And while institutions have significant capital, directly manipulating the markets to a lower stock's price for entry is it's like you would have to ask yourself, do these market makers and institutions care about ethics and legalities? I don't know. That's something you really have to ask yourself, if they really care about these things. Has market manipulation ever occurred before? Maybe, probably, right? And are financial markets always transparent or fair? Do we sell data from free brokerages to these institutions? Yeah. Do institutions gather a lot of information to determine what's the best price and how far they can beat down the stock? Probably. So when you have someone saying $5 stock price, it's a very much psychological thing. And it's like, can some of these YouTubers be paid bears and paid pumpers or paid bashers? I don't know. That's something you may have to ask them. Like, hey, are you paid by any kind of institution to at all? That's something you guys may want to start asking some of the YouTubers. Like, are you paid to pump the stock? Are you paid to bash the stock? I think it's really worth asking some of these larger names out there, honestly. And there's this thing called the shakeout theory, where a lower entry point is something institutions might prefer because they'd want to buy it at a lower price. And if they do believe that a stock is undervalued due to like high retail investor enthusiasm, they may wait for an anticipation of a price increase or drop. And they'll definitely use market psychology and try to influence the sentiment in order to create price movements in order to find a good entry point, right? So institutions and large capital bases can definitely influence the stock, and I think that's a very much possibility we can see, because even when you view like Chinese companies or Chinese stocks, like, do you really think that NIO is going to be delisted? I don't think so personally, because at that point you might see Tesla be kicked out of China, and is that the start of World War III? So it's like, I think that's the real question to ask yourself. Are these VIE structured companies going to be delisted? I'd argue no, because that's World War III at that point. We all know that Chinese companies, electric vehicles, want to go into the United States. We all know that the United States need electric vehicle companies and China. And if the United States keeps up these tariffs, then I assure you China's going to retaliate with tariffs of their own even more. And I don't know if the United States is almost at a breaking point, okay? Like, I was thinking about the economy in the United States. I was thinking about the politics, the presidential elections, the assets, prices, home values, social and civil and economic conditions. And I don't know. I feel like our country is almost at a breaking point, and there has to be a point where something gives. And I think the United States, unfortunately, may be at a point where they have to give. So with that being said, it's like, do I really think Warren Buffett is a nice old man? Or do I think he's a cruel man with a lot of market psychology and manipulation, and has done a lot of terrible practices globally and domestically in order to maximize profits? Probably the latter. So how are these investors and institutions gonna get the general public to sell their shares for even cheaper? I don't know. The stock's pretty low now. Like, are these people bag holders pretty much committed to bag holding? Because if these people aren't going to sell, okay, let's just pretend that the 44% of the general public of NIO, they're just not going to sell. Like, they're like, you know what? I've been in this long. I've taken this much of a beating. Like, I'm just not selling out. This is it. I'm riding or dying with the company. if the institutional investors try to keep manipulating the stock and beat it down even more to like the $1, then you're going to have people like William Lee, the Abu Dhabi government, and Tencent Holding and Bailey Gifford, who have large investments in the company, be like, hey, you guys can't keep beating down my stock. Like, I need my stock to go up too, because I want to raise more capital. I need more capital in my company. So you're going to have people like William Lee, the Abu Dhabi government, Tencent Holding, Bailey Gifford. These four are going to be really mad at shorts for basically, and institutions for like trying to manipulate the stock. Now, manipulating the stock is a very vague definition, so that's really up to your own interpretation. But if the state government, William Lee, and individual insiders and large institutions have a vested interest in the company's success for a long period of time, I think if they can benefit from shorting the stock, or if they can benefit from temporarily having a lower stock price, they would be okay with that, and then they pile in. But you cannot have that for a long time, because even William Lee is going to want the stock price to go up, and he's going to start being really upset too, and so is the Chinese government, and so are individual insiders, and so are like large stakeholders like the Abu Dhabi or Tencent or Bailey Gifford. It's not a small deal to lose $1 billion and be like, oh yeah, I have like hundreds of billions, it's not a big deal. No, that's a lot of money. Like I don't really care how much these institutions have. Like, losing $1 billion is not fun. That means like a bunch of people lost their jobs if they do. So it's kind of like, how much more can you squeeze the retail investors out? And that's kind of like what the Fed's doing too, right? Like, if the Fed can't manage to get retail out, then, you know, it's like a game of chicken. Retail investors are just not going to sell. They're going to hold diamond handed. And that's one form of my market psychology right there. So I guess the real question at this point is this a good deal for you? And do you think that retail is going to keep selling out or not? If retail's held here, and, you know, all the retail investors said, you know, I'm not selling, I am not going to sell, then, you know, you cannot shake these hands out, and these institutional investors, they can't shake each other because they're all in cahoots. And if they drive down the stock, again, I cannot emphasize this enough, William Lee and the Abu Dhabi and Tencent and Bailey Gifford are not going to be happy with it. All these retirement funds, they're going to be really upset. And, you know, it's possible, right? They saw this coming, so they're like, oh, okay. They want to like shake out the weak hands one more time, so like, I better get out before I'm part of this war. This is just my perspective though. I'm not a financial advisor. Please do your own research. This is just my humble opinion. But yeah, so I do think that like these individual insiders, the state, and large other corporations and institutions have a big interest in the company succeeding. So it's like, maybe you could even say like, I'm okay with, as of November 10th 2023, from Q2 to Q3 and 4 and maybe Q1 of 2024, I'm okay with the stock being beaten down and everyone can get in. But at some point after like Q4 of 2024, you may be like, hey, wait, you guys can't just keep beating my stock down. You guys can't keep shorting my stock and manipulating it. I need to make money. I need to raise capital. I need to show investors that it's a worthwhile investment. You guys are scaring away all my investors. And, you know, William Lee has said that he is not really for shorts and shorting the stock. So yeah, with that being said, you can only really concern yourself with how the company's doing. And if you think the company is doing good now and you think that they're doing the best they can given the environment and that they're going to be doing good over time, then that's a good sign. But you can't really change what these people are going to do. You're just a small fish following the big one. And that's all we're doing, right? We're all just trying to find the best entry price for us and trying to maximize our own profits, right? By pretending to be institutions. So I think that's something interesting to consider. It makes sense to me. and I've seen it before. And the reason why I want to make this video is because I think I'm seeing a lot of similarities from 2018 and 2019, especially like the types of users that are bearish on, posting bearishness on the stock. Like, it's the same users from back then. And I thought that was interesting because they only came when the stock was just to like beat down the stock. So I see like a lot of the same sentiments going on. A lot of the conditions are being very much the same too. So I just want to share my opinion on things, and I hope that someone found it useful. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I'd love to clarify more. I hope I explained myself okay. This is just my opinion, so please do your own research, and I hope you all have a great day.